Good morning. Will the Housing Land Use Committee of October 22nd, 2025 please reconvene? It is 11:06 a.m. and on October 23, 2025. I am the Vice Chair of this committee, Nohelani U'uhajans. Thank you. Chair Kama is out today, so I will continue to act as chair for this meeting. Member Kama is excused. Let's begin with Councilmember Tom Cook. Good morning.
Good late morning, Chair. Nobody currently is at the South Maui Regional Office for testimony, but we have...
Testimony is closed, so
that's right.
Hopefully not, because this is a recess meeting.
Well, I hope nobody goes.
Okay. We'll now make it very clear.
Good.
Testimony is closed. We closed it yesterday.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councilmember Gabe Johnson, good morning.
Good morning, Chair, council members, community members. Real quick before we get started, I'm curious what the schedule is. Are we going to go till noon and have lunch and come back
It
at
depends.
1:30,
I'm
or-
quite flexible today. This was the only thing on my agenda except to pick up my children, and now my mom is doing that. So I'm here, and we can figure out whatever works for the body today. If you need to eat lunch at noon, I can always eat, so you let me know.
Okay, I just need to maybe leave around 1 o'clock-ish.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Council Chair Alice Lee, good morning.
Good morning.
Councilmember Tamara Paulton, good morning.
Good morning. I'm here at my kitchen table with one minor canine. And hopefully her snoring doesn't bother you folks.
Thank you for saying that. I forgot to say, members, in accordance with the Sunshine Law, please identify anyone by name. If anyone is in the room, vehicle, workspace with you today, minors do not need to be identified. So for the record, I'll say that. Thank you for beating me to it. Councilmember Rollins Fernandez, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Aloha Avakia, Chair. Aloha Avakia Kako. Nice to be here in person. I do have a meeting at 2, but I suspect that will be done so that Member Johnson can eat. I love eating too, as you do, Chair.
Priorities.
And the recommendation is what the recommendation is.
That's right.
Mahalo,
Okay,
Chair.
thank you. Councilmember Sinenzi, good morning.
Hello, Chair. Good morning.
Councilmember Yukile Sugimura, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for working hard, and I have a 2 o'clock meeting, too.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. From the Department of Planning, we have Mr. Gregory Post, Administrative Planning Officer, Danny Diaz, Planning Program Administrator. They're online with us today. We have Carrie Stockwell in person, County Real Property Tax Administrator. And we have Kristen Tarnstrom, Deputy Corporation Counsel, and Nahulu Nunukawa, Deputy Corporation Counsel. Our committee staff include Jennifer Yamashita, Committee Secretary, James Kruger, Senior Legislative Analyst, Casey Apotakayama, Senior Legislative Analyst, Ellen McKinley, Legislative Analyst, and Megan Muniz, Legislative Attorney. Please see the last page of the agenda for information on meeting connectivity. Members, we left off yesterday afternoon with discussing our TIG report, and we are here again today to continue to discuss the TIG report. So we're going to continue with the deliberations. For FYI, for the non-TIGgers, we had Casey and Nahulu in all of our meetings, so they can also help answer questions if we need to, which I'm sure they're super stoked about. Look at Casey's face. The two people, excuse. We also had Danny and Greg in our meetings as well, so they can help answer questions. And Carrie. She has provided us with information on the RPT, which I think this is what Member Cook you asked for yesterday, but maybe we can begin with you explaining this document, and then we can begin deliberations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for everything that you guys have been doing. Yes, so I created the document with all the properties that weren't in the Exhibit 2 to show, so you can have a current list of all the Minatoya properties. So you can see the minimum, maximum of all the properties that are on the Minatoya list.
So, Chair, So if you took the grand total that we received today, and you took off the Exhibit 2, ones that we got yesterday, the 58,878 minus 27,6, the difference is what is not on Exhibit 2?
So I think,
This is like all of them.
oh, that's all of them, yes. So you
Okay,
take
all of
one
them.
minus the other and you
Okay.
get everything
So
that,
you
no?
took all of them, and you took this one off, the
Correct.
balance. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Cook. Does anybody else have any other questions that we or our resources online can help answer? Shirley, please go ahead.
Any questions? All right, so with your recommendations of the TIG, does the TIG believe that the steps that are needed to implement the recommendations could be done at a later date? For instance, creating the H3, H4, and any other important substantive steps. Could they just be done later, or do they need to go first?
When you say first, do you mean like right now before Bill 9 or?
Yes.
Okay. That's a great question, maybe for Corp Counsel. But what I do think is that, at least I think, this is not something we necessarily discussed with the TIG, but I think this is a good question for Nahulu. But the recommendations from the TIG could stand independently. It could, independently of Bill 9. It could. But I plan to do the H3 and H4 new designations concurrently with the change in zonings. And I hope to do that soon. We're actually having a meeting next week so we can discuss timeline. But I think Nahulu can answer your main question, if you don't mind, Nahulu.
Yeah, I don't mind. It doesn't necessarily need to occur before. It's up to this body on timeline of how you want to position these things. You could move forward on Bill 9 and create the zoning designation. It just depends on what you folks decide to do.
Well, it doesn't seem logical to me as far as the sequence goes to carve out thousands of units to be considered for a change in zoning, and that seem to meet the TIG's criteria for a change in zoning. But you don't have that zoning category created yet. And you're just hoping that in time it will be created. So, I mean, I don't recall us working on, substantive, significant legislation like this with the hope and wish that something else will occur in the future, and which may actually go into some other council's term where we have absolutely no control over.
I think that question is more for us. And I do see Member Paulton's hand up. I do hear you, Chair Lee, but I'm not gonna hope for it to get done. We are gonna do it. We've talked about it in our TIG. The planning department is gonna help us. They're gonna take the lead because it's a quicker process for them to do it. If they drag their feet, which I hope they're not, then we're gonna do it. We have, one of the recommendations is for us to do, as we discussed in the TIG, Member Cook is gonna do a resolution. Initially, Member Cook was going to propose the H3 and H4 zoning designation, But in discussions with the planning department, it is quicker for them to do it. It can bypass us and go straight to the planning department. Planning commission, instead of coming here to get sent there. So it's a quicker process. The other quicker process is to have a council-initiated change in zoning with the H3 and H4 new designations. It can happen simultaneously, and I plan to do it concurrently, and we're gonna start
Okay.
it soon.
But if I might add, you might try to do it concurrently, but you don't have control over everything. You know, lawsuits.
No one does, yes.
You know, you don't have control over the planning commissions who may not agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
You may not have control over a whole list of things.
Sure.
So I'm not questioning your intent. I'm just saying that there could be, and probably will be, unforeseen circumstances that come up that will delay this process. And that's the part I'm concerned about.
Sure, I hear you on that. Thank you. Member Paulton, you have something you wanna add?
Sure. To me, it doesn't make sense to do this ahead of Bill 9 or allow this to hold Bill 9 to allow this TIG report and the actions that we plan to take to hold up the passing of Bill 9, because if Bill 9 doesn't pass, why bother wasting our time with creating new zoning, with doing a mass change in zoning, council-initiated change in zoning, and the things that are out of our control, like when the planning commission hears it, the charter allows for that. For example, remember U'uhajin started a council-initiated change in zoning for Ho'onani villages. The planning commission did not take it up within their charter allotted amount of time. It was direct referred to my committee, and I'll be hearing it on November 5th. So there's an example of things being out of our control, us following the rules of the charter and the code, and continuing on anyway. So this is not a reason to stall any longer. One of the other things that we heard in the TIG was take a dump or get off the pot already, because this holding pattern that we're in is just driving everybody insane, people for and against it, including ourselves. So I don't know why we would stall any much longer on Bill 9. The planning department is in support of H3 and H4. I haven't heard any of the members be against it. The four of us on the TIG are for it. And so in order for it to happen, like even if the planning commission says no, we would only need 2 more votes because the four of us already committed on the TIG that we're in support of it. So if 2 people that weren't on the TIG say they're supportive, then it's gonna go forward.
Chair,
Thank you, Member Paulton.
did every member of the TIG sign this document here that you
I don't think
submitted?
a signature was required, but we did have unanimous support on all of the
Okay.
recommendations we
So
put.
I'm assuming that all of you read what you approved.
Yep,
So it says, under recommended action, it says barrier to implementation.
yep,
The length of time for land use designation changes to be reviewed and approved
Yep.
will likely extend beyond the council term, the current council term. So I think I have very justified concerns, legitimate concerns.
Sure.
You know, that just shouldn't be dismissed. I want answers. I want specific answers. Thank you.
no, and I hear you. We have a very short council term, and we are nearing the end of this year, which means we only have next year left. I did put together a rough timeline, which I don't necessarily feel comfortable discussing because I didn't share this with anybody yet. But if we get a move on, we could be done about this time next year. I don't disagree. We're always going to have variables in life that we can't control. It could extend for a long time. Look how long we've been working on Bill 9. Look how long we've been working on all the things. But all we need to do is start immediately, which I plan to do. I was just talking to Nahulu about it. I do hear your concerns, and I understand them, which is why we're gonna start ASAPs. Thank you.
It will be even faster if we move on Exhibit 2 as is and take up additional ones after the fact. Because same thing, that has 4 votes. It'll just take another 2. And if we want to add or subtract, or mostly add, and take that up in a separate discussion, then we can breeze through this faster. But it is going to take the work of all of us to get it done before the end of the term. And so we can clearly see who is sandbagging and stonewalling as time goes on, and it is what it is.
So my plan is as the chair for the TIG, I'm gonna work with Planning Department and Corp Council to do this council-initiated change in zoning. We're gonna work with Nahulu and Corp Council, send out a form letter to all of the properties listed on Exhibit 2, because as Member Paulton said, and as Member Cook and Member Senensi, we have all agreed that these ones we feel comfortable changing zoning. And everybody else will then have the opportunity to review, like we're doing now. And we're gonna give the property owners a timeline into which we need the information from them to send back to us, so we can input that in our change in zoning request to really us. So what we probably need from the planning department, and they can answer, is meets and bounds, information from their deed, which I'm assuming they're all watching us right now. Hi, here's what we're gonna need from you. We're gonna need your meets and bounds. We're gonna need some information from your deed so that we can expedite this change in zoning process. I will let Mr. Post answer this to really confirm what I'm saying. And my plan is to get all of those, oh good, thank you for listening. All of those information packets for each unit, each property. We're probably gonna have it in front of us. We'll send it to Planning Commission. They'll have their time to review. I think and I hope what will clarify some of the confusion in what we normally view as change of zoning is we're trying to anticipate the unknown when we do a change in zoning, because majority of our land is ag, and we typically change it to urban or something else. And so the possibilities are hard to understand in the moment. But in this situation, because it's a lateral move from H2 and 1 to A1 and 2 to H3 and 4, and it'll be like for like. No additional units to increase, no additional hotel accessories that we typically allow in H1,
That is good.
H2, and M1. The status quo will happen, and hopefully this won't be a very long and drawn out process, because what we see is what we're already gonna have. But
I thought that the TIG's term expired, so you will continue? Or do
Yes.
we need to extend
so
your
the
time?
TIG, no, because it's just the recommendation. And so with the TIG's recommendation, we can take that, sorry, I have a cough drop in my mouth, and do the PAFs and work on H3, H4 zoning and the council-initiated change in zoning. We just needed to come before you folks before we could technically start on that work. So we needed to do this.
No, Chair.
Yeah.
I thought I recalled you saying, probably yesterday, that there can be no changes to your recommendations.
No, because the TIG is POW.
The TIG is POW.
The TIG is POW.
So what you're
I'm not
doing,
changing our recommendation.
okay, so what you're doing is like reanalyzing some of the additional information you received from other property owners? I
Nope.
thought I heard you say that.
No, no. So when we do our council-initiated change in zoning, we will do what we have a big packet in the Exhibit 2. That will be the TIG's recommendation based on, or my proposal based on our TIG's recommendation. If any other property wanted to switch and become H3 and H4, they have a right to do so. They can do an applicant change in zoning, or they could solicit a council member to do a council-initiated change in zoning, but they won't be a part of the TIG's packet. Unless we really
Well,
did
of course,
miss
the
some
TIG
sort of
the TIG's
something.
packet has to be approved by the council.
Yes, like everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, but unless we really missed something, like there is some property we didn't double, triple check because we pretty much did, that has a timeshare or some other leasehold that we've already decided are those established criteria, the TIG's recommendation is the TIG's recommendation. But the other properties, which we're all getting flooded with emails, I know that, to request to have this new designation or request to be on Exhibit 2. We're not making changes to Exhibit 2, but they can still be H3, H4, whatever is their current zoning, they can move over. But they will just go through a different process unless one of the council members would like to sponsor them.
So you see that the list that you came up with would consist of how many applications?
Let's look at, oh, hold on. I have it in front of me.
It'll be one application with multiple properties because it's a council-initiated mass change in zoning. So all the properties on Exhibit 2 and whatever meet the criteria that we may have missed will be in that change in zoning. It'll be a mass change in zoning.
We're looking at 48 properties.
48 properties. And so how many would not be on the list?
The delta of
The
not
balance.
48.
Which is?
Let me look. There are, oh, wait, actually, that's 40-something properties because I forgot 1 and 2. So 46 properties we're going to change. There are 104 properties on the list. If it ends at 106, I'm looking at my Excel spreadsheet. 1, 2, so there's 104. However, there are 4 Maui Schooner that is not applicable to this, Kua Plaza that has a variance, Mahina Surf that has a variance, and the Spinnaker, which burned down.
So the variance properties are allowed to continue with or without a change in zoning. So if they wanted the change in zoning, I think we were amenable, but if they didn't want it, we didn't want to force it on them because they're allowed to continue on through their variance anyway. So it's kind of it's optional for everybody, but they can continue on without the change of zoning anyway because of their variance.
Yes,
Well, I wish you a lot of success.
we're gonna need it.
Yeah, I know.
Except for Spinnaker, because Spinnaker didn't have a variance, it just burnt down. So we weren't counting that as potential units because it doesn't exist right now.
Okay, so the proposal that was sent to us from the mayor, I believe, had something like 6,100 units. And so, but my understanding is that Minatoya list was 7,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, because some of the units are already classified as owner occupied anyway, even though their highest and best use is short-term renting, people own it and live in it and can claim owner occupancy, homeowner exemption, or also long-term rental exemption. So there's 7,000 potential units, but that other number is how many are actually being taxed at STR, I believe.
Okay, because my concern is that I would consider that carve-outs in the sense that somebody made the determination these units don't apply, when we've also had at the same time lots of emails and concerns shared by the public or STR owners that they too have used their units as, owner occupant use or long-term use. So I think somehow they got skipped over or overlooked in some ways. So my concern is, the accuracy of the numbers we're working with. I'm wondering about
Well,
that.
they can say whatever they want, but they need to have the documentation to back it up. Like, you can be an owner occupied, but if you don't fill out the homeowner exemption form and turn it in by the deadline, then you're not gonna get it. So you have to back up your claims with documentation
But if they
where we're
are
at, I think.
owner occupied and they've submitted that information to our PT and they can answer for themselves, they do have that tax benefit. But it's the unit that's being taxed and assessed individually, not the property as a totality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But time and time again, our friend there has talked about you.
Carrie,
Carrie.
you. She's like, who?
Yeah, like, who, not me. Talks about you charging people on highest and best use.
Do you want to answer that? And then I'm gonna give Greg an opportunity to answer the information that planning and we will need for the change in zoning. Please go ahead.
So correct, we do charge on highest and best use. So there was total at the Minatoya properties, there's a little over 7,000 properties. However, there are properties within the Minatoya zone that are zone timeshare. So those ones will stay timeshare per Bill 9. So we didn't include those when we run our numbers.
Yep.
Also, anyone that was owner occupied or long-term rental. So that's why the number went from that 7,000 to about the 6,000 properties, because those are the ones that would be affected by the change in zoning.
Okay, so you don't consider those that you excluded from the list as carve-outs or given special exemptions?
No, because they've applied for those exemptions. Those are granted to any parcel can apply for the owner-occupied exemption or the long-term rental exemption, not just the properties that's on the Minatoya
And they
list.
all applied?
And all those properties that we have applied, have successfully applied and been granted the exemption.
For homeowner, for,
But not the timeshares,
Owner-occupied.
not timeshares.
So timeshares are subject to HRS. They have to file Hawaii Revised Statute timeshare plan. And per Maui County Code 3.48.305, timeshares need to, as long as they file as a HRS timeshare, we have to tax them at that timeshare rate. And that is their highest and best use.
And their zoning category is?
So their zoning would be either A1 or A2. They're on the properties that reside in that Minatoya, but they have that timeshare
Use.
ownership.
yeah.
So that their ownership is as a timeshare, and per Maui County Code, that is their highest and best use is timeshare.
No, but that's how, when you charge people for their tax liability, we're talking about land use, right? As
The
well,
land use
as well.
is the A1, A2,
A2,
that's why
the
they're
land
on the
use,
Minatoya
correct.
list, but then their use is timeshare. Ownership is timeshare, they're taxed as timeshare.
Okay,
And we have records with that through HRS, the state. And they are taxed separately, as you know, when we do our budget, they have a separate line for timeshares. So they'll remain timeshares.
I'll probably ask for some kind of legal clarification on that. Thank you.
Sure. Right now, if I could have. I'm gonna ask Greg real quick because I wanted to answer Charity's original question about what information we're gonna need to do the change in zoning. So if you could please, Mr. Post.
Yes, thank you. Typically, it's basically what you've been submitting when you've done other prior changes of zoning, so meets and bounds. It would be helpful if we had a description for each property on the reason for the change. I know there was criteria established by the TIG, but for each property, it would be helpful for that, for the Planning Commission to consider. There are certain criteria within the code that have to be met to doing a change in zoning, so we want to provide that explanation. I know Danny's also on the line too, and Danny actually handles more the change in zoning. I would actually be handling the change in the zoning designation from H to H3 and H4 and creating that zoning designation. But I don't know if Danny has any additional information that would be needed to be submitted. Danny?
Thanks, Greg. Greg is correct. That's the type of basic information that we would need. Generally, with changes of zoning, we require a lot more information like traffic reports, drainage reports, et cetera. But in this case, it's a little different, obviously, because these structures already exist. So I would say, the information that Greg just stated, and also This would be an interactive process. We would bring this before the commission. And so the commission would sort of have a say too, when we bring this item before them, they might have certain things that they would want to know, like, perhaps, how much units in each individual apartment are currently, short-term rented, et cetera. But yeah, generally basic information. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Member Sugimura, did you have a question?
Yeah, on the, one of the testifiers yesterday, and I'm sure all of you got an email, Kauhale Makai said that they have the 13 timeshare as part of their whole, so what happens to them? Because they have timeshare, plus they do everything else.
That one we apparently overlooked. We're gonna discuss what we're gonna do with that. And because it was part of our criteria, it will most likely be in the Exhibit 2 package when we have to do it.
Okay, so you're gonna add exceptions.
If they
Like
meet
that.
the criteria we've already discussed, but really timeshare was already exempt from Bill 9, so we were doing just to move them along. So if they're already doing timeshares, they're exempt. We exempted them from Bill 9. But we put them on the Exhibit 2 list just so we could have a clean list of what is already exempted.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you did not exempt them, but you are
No,
now.
but they're exempted in Bill 9.
Okay,
We didn't move them to Exhibit 2, but they're already exempted in Bill 9,
oh, okay,
like all timeshares.
okay.
Member Rollins Fernandez.
Even if only a portion of their total units?
Yes, because that is the most legal way to, this is what Nahulu advised us to do.
Okay.
Yeah, good
Thank you.
question.
Thank you.
Member Rollins Fernandez.
Mahalo Chair, I just wanted to clarify that it's not an exemption. Bill 9 just doesn't affect them because it's
Yes.
an ownership
Thank
style.
you.
So I just wanted to, I don't want anyone to get confused about like who is exempted and not exempted. It's just that Bill 9 just doesn't affect
Yes,
timeshares because
Yes.
of the ownership style.
thank you.
Yeah, mahalo.
Yep, as well as like the variance properties, it doesn't affect them. Yeah, that's a better way to say that. I appreciate that. Okay. Do we have any more questions? Chair Lee.
Of the planner, Mr. Post, is he still on the call?
I believe so.
Okay. Oh, there he is. Is it Post or Fost?
Post.
It's
Post.
post. The F is silent in my name, so it's
Okay.
post.
Okay, thank you. So
Sure.
have you ever done this type of, let's say, comprehensive zoning before?
That's a good question. In my career, I don't think that I've ever done quite a switch with this many parcels before. I mean, I've done zoning changes before in my career, but not one with so many parcels being changed to a new zoning designation, no.
Realistically, how long do you think that'll take to comprehensively zone all the properties on the list?
Well, I think, and Danny may chime in here too, but I think I think as Danny mentioned, it's pretty straightforward because the change that we're doing is just basically allowing that existing use to continue and allow it to continue with the same structure size or development potential, the same development standards. That's what the H3 and the H4 does, is it replicates the A1 and A2. So basically these changes in zonings are basically these buildings and these uses are going to be operating the same as what they exist today. So there's not a lot of issues theoretically to address. It's just kind of just switching them into a new zoning designation and allowing their allowing their transit vacation rental use to keep operating as it has been. So you're not faced with as many issues sometimes as a different other types of changes in zoning.
Okay,
where
so
you have to consider
thank
more
you.
issues, traffic-related issues.
Then, so the issues you keep talking about, would one of them be community plan designation? That has to be,
There does need to, most of these properties will need a community plan designation change as well. So that gets a little bit more complicated. We just need to be consistent with ensuring and reviewing the community plans, but we do need to make sure that they have a community plan designation change as well.
Okay,
Now,
we know the
I think
South Maui-
coincide with the zoning change.
we know South Maui is coming up, but what about West Maui and any place else? Who would initiate
it would
that
be
and
a
how
little
long would
bit
that
different.
take?
Great. we do it concurrent, like, when you do a DBA, CPA, CIZ, it's the same amount of time, because, like when you have the three bills, Ho'onani Village, we're gonna try to do a CIZ, MIP, CPA, all at the same time, under the same agenda item.
Yep.
Okay, and then
So
Mr.
there's just a
Mr. Post,
3-minute testimony.
Mr. Post,
And that would also carry forward through the planning commission. The planning commission would review the community plan amendment and the zone change at the same time for each property.
can I ask one more question?
Please.
Thanks. Okay, so as you are comprehensively zoning the properties on Exhibit 2, the other properties who also want a change in zoning, when will you be able to take them up?
It's kind of a question then if whether or not those other properties that want to do a change in zoning, one, are able to have a council member initiate that zoning, right? So that could be at the same time that the council considers the change in zoning for everything on Exhibit 2. If those properties come forward to you and you want to add properties to that list, that would be the most expedient way. Otherwise, then it would be a simple app. It would be an application for a change in zoning and community plan amendment for individual properties to do without a council initiation. And that would take a little bit longer, typical with any change in zoning or community plan amendment. So it would take a little bit longer for our staff to process.
What's a little bit longer?
And Danny would probably have to provide input on that. I know we're kind of short on staff, so I don't know if Danny has any comment on how long just a straightforward change in zoning and community plan amendment would take.
Danny, I'm going to have you answer that question, and then I'm going to move on to Member Paulton. We can come back to you, Chair Lee, if you have any more questions. But go ahead, Danny.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the normal change in zoning. So, an applicant driven change in zoning, honestly, it's going to take the same amount of time as all other changes of zoning. In this case, like we mentioned earlier, because there's less information that we need because the structures are already constructed, I mean, that may help something like agency review or just the overall review process, but still, the requirements of, notices, agency review, public hearing notices, getting before the commission, et cetera, it's still going to take, I would say at least a year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Member Paulton?
Thank you. Contrary to Mr. Post's opinion, I think it would be faster to just change the zoning on Exhibit 2 or any STR parcel that meets the criteria if Kauhale Makai is proven to meet the criteria with their recordation of timeshare units. And then if a council member wants to sponsor additional ones, I would do a separate one because you already have 4 votes for the Exhibit 2. And you may just need 1 more, or you may need 2 more, depending on what Planning Commission says. So that can sail through relatively quickly. If it wasn't on Exhibit 2, then you don't have 4 votes guaranteed. And it should stand on its own because we already discussed it. And I think the 4 of us agreeing on the list of Exhibit 2 can expedite those 40-odd parcels. Not to say that other parcels won't be able to do it, but let's expedite what the TIG recommendations are if it's agreed upon that those 40 some odd either operate as a hotel or have timeshares, which we potentially don't want to mix up and say these guys can and these guys cannot within a same parcel, would be my recommendation. Because if we make it clear that we're not opening up Exhibit 2 willy-nilly, it can go through faster. And that's not shutting the door on all other parcels. That's just expediting that portion of it. And then, whatever else happens, if a council member wants to sponsor something else, they can. And then we'll discuss the merits in open session, and it could take longer, but there's 3 to 5 years to do it. There's another term. And to the point of, there might be a whole new term. That's our electorate, that's our constituency giving feedback on whether they want this or not. So if people that want to change the zoning or that want to phase out short-term rentals are not reelected, then that's the constituency saying we don't want to phase out short-term rentals. If people that want to keep short-term rentals are reelected, then that's the constituency speaking. We're just here as representing our constituency, and so they determine the future.
Chair.
If I could add, I think, real quick, I don't know if Mr. Post suggested we make a change to our TIG recommendation when we do it, but just that it could happen near around the same time, but it wouldn't necessarily be included in the TIG's like 46 unit packet or property packet. Charlie, do you have another question? The member Cook, do you have a question? Okay.
Yeah, I have a comment.
Okay.
I have a comment. When I talk about my point of view, I don't, and today's agendized item are the recommendations of the TIG. I expect to be able to express myself freely and not make statements and then hear a rebuttal. See, I'm just talking about the TIG. I'm not talking about anybody in particular.
Sure.
So, and that's, I hope
Yeah,
this
that's
discussion will
free speech.
continue in this manner. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Member Rollins Fernandez, did you have something to add?
Mahalo, Chair. I thought we were having a discussion.
Me too.
And that's how discussions happen. Like, I say something, and then it might, make you think of something, and then someone thinks of something else, and we talk about the subject and the feedback that each other gives. Like, that's how dialogue happens. What I was gonna add to what Member Paulton was saying is that there are 4 votes because these 4 council members met on September 15, 16, 17, 19, 23, 27, 29 with the different resource folks from the administration and elsewhere to vet these properties based on the criteria. And I'm sure had maybe sometimes not easy discussions and debates over which property should be on that list and which shouldn't be on that list. But that's how we ended up with the recommendation. And so that work was done. And in order to consider more properties, I'd imagine that the same 4 and the rest of us would like to have like that level of discussion again. And that's what I would expect on any additional properties from the recommended list, Exhibit 2. There was one more thing I wanted to say, but I don't remember at the time. So at this moment, I will yield the mic, but I appreciate the discussion and going back and forth and hearing everyone's perspective and being able to share my perspective on other of my colleagues' perspectives. Mahalo, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. We had a pretty good time in the TIG, I might want to add. We had roundtable discussions, the 4 of us with Nahulu and Stacy and Casey and our resources. Usually the most hot topic was what we were going to eat for lunch and making sure we didn't drip all over our papers. So majority of our binder has some fork and salad dressing on it. But we had a decent time. We created the H3, H4 zoning within the first few hours because Member Cook wanted to do initially A3 and A4 and create that same allowed use, but then that would continue on gray areas. So with the planning department's recommendation, we moved that over to H3 and H4, and then we discussed criteria for a bit. And then what we did was go over the individual properties, kind of move over the obvious ones and the non-affected ones as we discussed. And then we kept a long gray list is what we called it. And we kept going back to that gray list. And we kept trying to discuss its merits in remaining in apartment use or discuss its merits in keeping STR use. So that was kind of what happened. We met with planning department in the very beginning of our meetings and the planning department at the very end of our meetings so that we could discuss how we're going to proceed, discuss amongst us, and then follow up with them to ensure that the way we're going to proceed is what we had originally intended and assumed was going to happen. And in the middle of all of that, we met with members of the public to get information on leaseholds and timeshares and mortgage lending, and met with a realtor to discuss HOA fees and how much the units were selling for. We discussed shoreline issues, and that was did I miss anything? Nope. That
I
was the
was
length of our
wondering if,
discussion.
the other parts about access, was that not in the scope?
Can you remind me what about access?
How many of the properties did not allow access, to the beach, and that was,
Yes, we spoke about how if shoreline properties continue with hotel use, how we would prefer that they allow Kama'aina and local access to the ocean front in front of their properties. But that will come in some of the criteria that we will maybe see in the bills to come. Yeah? Member Sugimura?
Thanks. So the opening two testifiers talked about Waihuli Beach Hale, I think, from my
Okay.
scribblies. And I thought they were talking about that it's a very expensive property and it wouldn't make sense to put this on, for everybody else. It should be on Exhibit 2. Did you all have discussions about that?
We had discussions about what necessarily we consider affordable, but I'm not too sure if that one was. I'm gonna say this though real quick. We're gonna need properties with a whole bunch of price points. That's one. Two, they didn't necessarily tell us how much the units are for. And right now, affordable housing is about $700,000. So that is what it is. And I understand that's their perspective, if they wanted to send over some information. But what we did for the ones that were expensive in the resort visitor areas is how we manage those, the expensiver properties.
Okay, and then another one, there was a testifier from the Lahaina Beach. It sounded like Tamar knew the property pretty well. Would that be considered, it should be on Exhibit 2?
Oh, we're not making changes to Exhibit 2.
Well, it can be for a future, right? So I'm just wondering what your thought process was. I mean, I don't
I
mean
can
you, I
add
meant
to,
the group.
Yeah.
I
Go
can
ahead,
add a little bit to what Nohe's trying to explain. It's been said a lot about affordable or attainable housing, but like as I said, before the fire even, we needed housing in all shapes and sizes, all price point ranges. And so knowing that majority of the people looking for housing are looking on the lower end, but not all. So we significantly removed a number of the higher end parcels, but not all. Because, taking into account some different scenarios that aren't super prevalent, but do occur, like empty nesters that have large houses in good neighborhoods may want to downsize where they don't have to do their own yard or do their own home maintenance and things like that. And maybe possibly free up a single family home for a younger family. A lot of people live at, Kapalua Golf Villas is what we were told by one of our resources. And so it's not out of the question. And the other thing, like assuming that we have 70 years or 50 years or 20 years. Maybe somebody wants to just live out the rest of their life oceanfront and they're not super concerned about sea level rise by 2100 because they're already in their 60s, 70s, or 80s, you know, and so there's those different situations that we didn't want to completely ice out from the opportunity. But we did feel that visitor-focused areas, it did make sense to continue visitor accommodations.
Discretionary thoughts. So Lahaina Beach Club, I'm sorry, that was my
Lahaina
notes.
Beach Club.
And
I think Lahaina
got-
Beach Club was on my list.
that what? That list that you read out
Yeah.
at the very end, what did you say?
I think that was already on Exhibit 2, Lahaina Beach Club.
Oh, it was on Exhibit 2?
I think so.
Yeah,
Let me
that's
double
what I
check.
said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
And so everything that Tamara said yesterday afternoon, I can go back and listen to it, but can you just give us your notes? Because you said this was the properties you looked at and you came up with whatever. And you were reading off your piece of paper, so can you share with the committee what you were saying on your visits, right? Those were your visits actual site visits you made. Thank you.
It's in my drawer next to my desk
With your lay.
with my lay.
Yeah.
But basically, you know, if there were timeshares, then that was automatic easier because that's kind of black and white. If they were in visitor focused areas, that was pretty easy. I know that the Slerexa, I think, ones were the most subjective. And then the other one was the not suitable, which I guess could be subjective, but I think it was Lahaina Beach Club and Pikake that I visited, and it didn't seem suitable for long-term residential living.
So those were Exhibit 2 items,
Yes.
based on your memory.
And then for what we did was we used the 3.2 flood Slerexa and worked with the planning department because that's what they use now. And the ones that were fully inundated, for the most part, we moved over. I would also like to add, though, that we moved over to H3, H4. In
But
reviewing,
we did ground truth. For me, I did ground truth all the Slerexa, fully in the Slerexa ones. I went and visited them and looked at it and assessed it myself.
Yep. And then for those that we kept in apartment, we did look, some of them have old deed documents that reference that this is for long-term residential use only. So we made sure to keep those in apartment use.
Okay, so the Slerexa pretty much, did you say it went to A2? Or are you going to
No.
exclude them?
No.
What?
So-
I'll try to explain.
So what's
as
the action
if
the
the-
TIG is going to do?
So if they were fully inundated
Yeah,
with the 3.2, which is like what we were talking about yesterday in Member Paulton's DRIP committee and how we recognize that as a hazard. If they were fully inundated, and some of them, if they were significantly, and in those significant moments, Member Paulton did go and physically look at the area, as well as when we looked online, you can see a map and see what buildings are where on the property. Then it made the lateral move from them to go to A1, A2 to H3, H4.
okay, so they're on the list then, okay.
Yes, they're on the
Very good.
list.
That's what I wanted to know.
Okay.
We have
Thank
got
you.
got
Not
them covered.
exclusively though. For West Maui, I did ground truth
Yep.
the Slerexas. I
Yep.
walked the properties in Honokowai, and there were some like Lahaina roads I mentioned. The entirety of the parcel is in the Slerexa, but they have like a 5-foot seawall. And then the whole ground floor, which is another 10 feet, is not housing, it's just parking. And so like I did do some ground truthing there. Noelani, I think I mentioned specifically, which is south of Esterns Pohaku Park. Esterns Pohaku is like a dip in the road where that outlet is, and then Noelani, you go up a hill and it's kind of on a cliff embankment. And I believe so there were some like no Honani, I believe, also where at the Bureau of Conveyances, like the chair said, they had recorded it was exclusively for long-term rental use and things like that. I think Lokilani came up in the testimony as well. Somebody wanted that to be taken off Exhibit 2. But to me, I looked at it and I was questionable because of where the high tide was, that it would have a long-term lifespan on it. So I moved that one to Exhibit 2, despite the Bureau of Conveyances recordation, because, I think my criteria was at least, I gotta look at it and feel confident that it's gonna survive the next 10 years, at least.
Okay.
Thank you, Member Sugimura. Member Johnson, I saw you had your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't a member of the TIG, so this is a question for the TIG.
Sure.
When you guys considered some, because we have the timeshare, did you guys consider that maybe in that period of before Bill 9 takes effect, many people will suddenly jump into the timeshare?
That's a good question for Ms. Stockwell.
Okay,
I'm not too sure the process for them to switch that over.
yeah, I'm curious on how that would work, and all of a sudden, are you going to be inundated with a whole lot more timeshares?
So
We changed the law on timeshares,
It's capped?
where it has to be, not a cap, but when we were talking about, or when that Vacasa and timeshare ownership structure came up, and I think Michelle McLean might have still been the director, she anticipated that timeshares were the next big problem. And so we changed the law that timeshares have to be a minimum of 6 months. And 6 months is a short-term rental occupation. So I think everyone before us changing the law can do timeshares in like 2-week intervals or whatever it is. But once we change the law, it has to be a minimum of 6 months. And that's, anything less than that is short-term rentaling. 6 months and more, I believe, is not.
Thank you for that institutional knowledge, Councilmember Paulton.
Ms. Stockwell, did you want to add anything to that?
add?
I wanted to add to that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the Vacasa that Member Paulton is talking about was a big threat because that was a lot of protests was happening in California over their housing inventory being taken up by a fractional ownership model that Vacasa, I don't know if they started, but they were capitalizing on. And so Member Paulton did the work and introduced the bill so that we would, prevent that type of
Situation.
taking over of our housing inventory here as well.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Chair.
Member Johnson, do you have any other questions?
That was my one.
That was a good one. Any other questions? Shirley, you have any other questions?
Yeah, a couple
You look
quick.
antsy over there. Yes.
Yeah, because I'm hungry.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So what the mayor initially proposed did not have these significant changes that the TIG is recommending, which is, about 4,000, how many on the list? About 4,000? Yeah, and then 2,000 that would have to,
So
2,000 something would have to apply independently.
if they want to,
Yeah,
sure.
if they wanted to change
So
zoning.
right now it's, I think this is the latest list, but it looks like 4,264 units that the TIG supported to move into H3 and H4 and to remain 2,438 units in apartment, which
So-
would be 1,377 units in South Maui and 1,061 in West Maui.
Because I notice you keep referring to planning, the planning department. So I'm just wondering why the planning department didn't help the mayor come up with a list like this as well?
That's a conversation you would have to have with them. I didn't ask, I don't know.
Okay, but because they seem to be the ones to verify a lot of the properties that moved into Exhibit 2, right?
No,
No?
no, they were in our first meeting where we proposed the new zoning for H3, H4. And then that was the first meeting that they were at, and then they were at the last meeting. But they weren't with us as we did majority of the move. They were
Okay.
there as we kind of established the beginning of the criteria.
Okay, my other question is, I recall you asking me to give you more time for the TIG so that, and to wait on Bill 9 until you had a chance to finish. Okay. So at that time, did you think that whatever you came up with would be incorporated in Bill 9?
No. When I asked for the 2-week extension, we were just about done with the TIG. And so I just requested that it be held off into the next one so that we could report out. I thought we would have just at least had a minute for this TIG to drop the initial report. And then, like on this Friday, we would have been voting on Bill 9. And then in the following week, we would have had this discussion. But what I didn't want to do is for the members who are not in our TIG was for us not to be transparent in why maybe the TIG was voting a certain way because we couldn't talk about it. So only now we can talk about it.
Okay.
But I at least wanted to give the other non-TIG members an understanding of where we were. We felt, and I asked permission from the TIG for me to call you. So that was a request from the TIG, not just me.
Okay.
So we could be as transparent with the community and the other members who were not in our TIG.
Okay. Did you ever discuss the possibility of, because I don't think any of us thought you'd come up with such a substantial list. Exempting all those properties without a change in zoning, exempting all those properties and asking the balance to change zoning. And that way, conceivably, Bill 9 could pass.
We had that discussion on our very first day with Corp Counsel. And with our Corp Counsel's opinion, they felt that not making these substantial changes to Bill 9 would be our best path forward. Also, we discussed the possibility of, because if it's so substantive, the changes, it may have to be sent back to Planning Commission and we would start the clock all over again. In my personal opinion, creating a new zoning and moving properties laterally is the cleanest way we can do it. And in 20 years, we're not having this discussion again because no hotels will be in apartment districts.
Okay, because I understand your motivation and your intentions, but I highly doubt that you can get this done in a reasonable amount of time. That's my concern.
You know what my children say when I say things like that to them? They go, bet.
No, I don't want to bet. I do
They
not
say
want to
bet.
bet because I just don't want to take anything from you.
And I hear you, and I understand. That is definitely a concern of mine. So I hear you, Chair Lee, for sure. But I can only do what I can do as fast as I can do it, so.
Please don't take this as blaming. I'm
No,
not blaming.
that's fine. That's fine.
I'm not criticizing you either. I'm just
I'm a big girl,
sharing
that
with
thick
you what I see.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
No, and I appreciate that.
Okay.
I appreciate that. I
Thank
do.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Chair. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, sorry, we cannot take from the audience. These are only for the members. Member Sugimura, do you have a question? Okay, I'll get back to you. Member Johnson, do you have another question?
Chair, my question has been answered this time.
Okay. Member Rollins Fernandez, do you have any questions?
I'm good. Mahalo, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Member Cook, you have any questions?
What's our next step?
Our next step is we're going to defer this because we don't need to adopt the recommendations. You're going to work on the resolution for H3, H4 zoning. I'm going to meet with planning and Nahulu to make sure we have an established timeline to do so. That is next week, and we're going to talk about that zoning and all of the other recommendations we have for the council-initiated change in zoning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Charity, do you have any more questions right now? Okay, thank you. Member Sinanci, you have any more questions?
I didn't have any questions, Chair, but I did wanted to add, during testimony concerning Bill 9, we did hear a lot of testimony about affordability and upzoning. And so that was, I think, with the TIG's recommendation and creating the Hotel 3 and 4 zoning, that was one of the things that people actually requested. If some of the properties were already one in hotel zone or already operating as a hotel. So, I mean, that was one of the things that people wanted. And then the second thing that testimony was on the affordability of some of the properties. So, and then of course, the other ones that didn't make the list, they always have the option of submitting a zone change for their properties to Hotel 3 and 4. The affordability part, we did talk about, Chair, the Ho'okumuho that provides for first-time owners in Lahaina. So if they qualify for that, some of these properties could be picked up with using those HUD funding. And then also we did have discussions about the county possibly purchasing some of the units as well. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Chair, I just I don't want people to misunderstand what was just said, because one of those programs with the CDBG DR funds that provides funding for new homes or purchasing homes, there are restrictions.
Yes.
You know, restrictions like, for instance, no purchases along the coastline, the shoreline.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's one of the issues I have with this whole thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Which is why we did discuss the shoreline properties and typically move them over to H3 and H4 zoning. Member Paulton, do you have anything to add before we close out this meeting?
Just like Chair Lee said, shoreline and flood zone is not eligible, and that program has been closed due to overwhelming amount of applications. I have heard that the first 2 applicants have gotten their shopping letters.
Wow.
And they're about to close, I believe, on how I heard of at least one single-family home in Wailuku. So great news for one fire survivor. Oh, I'm gonna need to disclose an adult male returned home from work, and his name is George Vieira.
Hello, George Vieira. Hello. Okay. Well, members, if we don't have any, please, if we don't have any questions without objection, I'm going to defer this item. Thank you very much. This concludes the HLU meeting for today. Thank you so much, members. It is now 12:14 and this HLU meeting is adjourned.